The stars looked different from the bridge of the USS Defiance. Admiral Jake Morrison had seen them from Earth's surface countless times, but out here in deep space, they seemed cold and distant. He stood with his hands behind his back, watching the endless darkness through the main view screen. "Sir, we're 3 hours from the target system," said Captain Lisa Hart. She was a tall woman with short brown hair and steady green eyes. She had been Morrison's second in command for 5 years, ever since the Defiance was just blueprints on a computer screen. Morrison nodded slowly. After 50 years of watching and waiting, humanity was finally ready to meet the galaxy. The ship around him represented everything Earth had learned from crashed alien vessels, stolen technology, and decades of careful observation. 800 of Earth's best and brightest were aboard, ready to make history. "Any word from the sensor arrays?" Morrison asked. Lieutenant Commander Amy Foster looked up from her station. "The alien ships are still patrolling the outer edge of the system. Same patterns as always. They don't seem to know we're coming." Morrison smiled grimly. The aliens had been so confident in their superiority that they never expected anyone to sneak up on them. Human stealth technology was crude compared to alien energy shields and faster than light drives, but it worked. The Defiance had crossed half the galaxy without being detected. Dr. Alex Kane walked onto the bridge carrying a tablet full of alien symbols and translations. He was a thin man with thick glasses who had spent his entire career studying alien communications. "Admiral, I've been monitoring their radio chatter. The aliens call themselves the Galactic Council. 12 species working together to rule the known universe." "Rule?" Morrison raised an eyebrow. "More like control," Kane said. "From what I can tell, they decide which species get to travel between stars and which ones stay on their home planets. They've been doing this for 3,000 years. Captain Hart moved closer to the conversation. "What about species that don't want to join them?" Kane's expression darkened. "The records I found suggest those species don't exist anymore." The bridge fell silent. Everyone had suspected as much, but hearing it confirmed made the situation real. Earth wasn't just making first contact. They were potentially walking into a trap that had caught thousands of other worlds. Chief Engineer Maria Lopez's voice came through the communication system. "Admiral, the fusion reactors are running at peak efficiency. All weapon systems are ready. The new railgun batteries are charged and waiting." "Thank you, Maria," Morrison replied. The railguns were humanity's greatest achievement. While aliens used energy weapons that could be deflected by shields, humans had perfected the art of throwing metal objects at incredible speeds. A tungsten rod moving at near light speed could punch through anything. Commander Sam Parker approached from the navigation station. He was a young officer with blonde hair and blue eyes, fresh out of the academy but brilliant with alien technology. "Sir, I've been studying their ship designs. They're built for show more than function. Lots of curves and decorative elements. Our ship might look ugly to them, but it's designed to fight." Morrison looked around the bridge of the Defiance. Parker was right. The human ship was all angles and armor plating. Every surface served a purpose. There were no decorations, no wasted space. It looked like what it was, a weapon designed by a species that had spent its entire history at war with itself. "Chief Tactical Officer Collins, report," Morrison called out. Ryan Collins stood up from his station. He was a big man with dark skin and graying hair, a veteran of Earth's last major war. "All weapon systems are online, sir. We have 48 railgun batteries, 60 fusion torpedoes, and enough ammunition to level a small moon. The point defense systems are tracking perfectly." "Defense systems?" "Armor plating is holding steady. The magnetic field generators are working better than expected. We can deflect most energy weapons, and the hull can take a direct hit from their standard missiles." Morrison felt a surge of pride. The Defiance was more than just a ship. It was proof that humanity could build something that matched the best the galaxy had to offer. They had taken alien technology and improved it, added human engineering and human determination. "Dr. Kane, what do we know about their first contact procedures?" Morrison asked. Kane consulted his tablet. "They send a diplomatic ship to meet new species. Usually just one vessel with a small escort. They offer membership in the Council along with access to galactic technology and trade routes. In exchange for what? Complete surrender of sovereignty. The new species has to accept Council law, Council oversight, and Council limits on population and military development. Captain Hart crossed her arms. Sounds like slavery with extra steps. That's exactly what it is, Kane agreed. Species that accept become junior members with no real power. They get to exist as long as they follow orders and provide resources to the Council. Morrison walked to the front of the bridge and looked out at the stars again. Somewhere out there was Earth, a small blue planet that had produced a species too stubborn to accept slavery. Humanity had fought wars over freedom for thousands of years. They weren't going to stop now. How long until we reach their capital? World, he asked. Navigator Ben Clark answered from his station. 6 hours at current speed, sir. The planet they call Nexus Prime is heavily defended. I count at least 200 ships in orbit. 200 ships, Morrison repeated. Against one. Yes, sir. Morrison smiled. Good. I was worried this might be too easy. The crew chuckled nervously. They all knew the odds, but they also knew why they were here. Earth had sent its best ship and its best people to deliver a simple message to the galaxy. Humanity would not kneel. All stations prepare for first contact, Morrison announced. Remember, we're not here to start a war, we're here to prevent one. But if they want to fight, we'll give them a fight they'll never forget. The bridge crew returned to their stations with renewed purpose. They had trained for this moment their entire careers. Every simulation, every drill, every sleepless night studying alien technology had led to this. Lieutenant Commander Foster looked up from her sensors. Sir, we're being scanned. Long-range sensors from the outer system. They know something is coming. Let them look, Morrison said. We're not hiding anymore. The USS Defiance continued its approach to Nexus Prime, humanity's first and only deep space battleship carrying 800 souls toward a meeting that would change the galaxy. Forever, behind them, Earth waited in silence. Ahead of them, an ancient civilization prepared to meet a species they had never encountered before. Neither side knew that in a few hours, the balance of power that had existed for 3 millennia would be shattered forever. The galaxy was about to learn that some species were too dangerous to ignore and too proud to conquer. The stars watched in silence as humanity announced its presence to the universe. The Council's diplomatic ship appeared on the USS Defiance's sensors, exactly as Dr. Kane had predicted. It was a beautiful vessel, all smooth curves and gleaming metal that reflected the light from Nexus Prime's sun. Behind it came 6 escort ships, smaller but just as elegant. Admiral Morrison watched the alien formation approach. They certainly know how to make an entrance, he said. Captain Hart stood beside him, studying the tactical display. The escort ships are armed, but their weapons are pointed away from us. They're trying to look peaceful. Dr. Kane, are you ready for translation? Morrison asked. Kane nodded from his station. The universal translator is online. I've programmed it with everything we learned from their communications. It should work, but expect some rough spots. The alien ship came to a stop 2 kilometers away from the Defiance. A moment later, their communication systems activated. Unknown vessel, this is Ambassador Veltar of the Galactic Council, came a voice through the speakers. The translation made it sound formal and slightly musical. We welcome you to Council Space. Please identify yourselves and state your intentions. Morrison nodded to Commander Sam Parker, who had been chosen to handle the initial contact. Parker was young but smart, and he had studied alien diplomatic procedures for months. This is Commander Sam Parker of the United Earth ship Defiance, Parker replied. We represent the planet Earth and the human species. We have come to establish diplomatic relations with the Galactic Council. There was a pause. Morrison could imagine the aliens on the other ship discussing this unexpected development. Earth was far from Council space, in a region they probably considered empty and worthless. Commander Parker, Ambassador Veltar's voice returned. We are pleased to meet representatives of Earth. The Council always welcomes new species into the galactic community. We would like to invite you aboard our ship to discuss the terms of Earth's membership. Parker looked at Morrison, who shook his head slightly. They had expected this invitation and they had no intention of accepting it. Too many species had sent their leaders to Council ships, only to have those leaders return as puppets. We appreciate your invitation, Ambassador, Parker said. However, we prefer to conduct negotiations here between our ships. We have full authority to speak for Earth. Another pause, longer this time. Morrison could hear the tension in the alien's voice when he replied, "That is unusual, Commander Parker. The Council has established procedures for first contact. These procedures have served the galaxy well for thousands of years. We understand," Parker said calmly. "But humanity has its own procedures. We're happy to discuss membership in the Council, but we need to know what that membership involves." Chief Tactical Officer Collins whispered to Morrison, "Sir, the escort ships are changing position. They're not pointing weapons at us yet, but they're moving to surround us." Morrison nodded. He had expected this too. The Council was used to dealing with species that were afraid of them. They probably couldn't understand why the humans weren't immediately bowing down and begging for protection. Ambassador Veltar's voice came through the speakers again. "Very well, Commander Parker. The Galactic Council offers Earth Junior membership status. This includes access to galactic trade routes, advanced technology, and protection from hostile species. What does Earth need to provide in return?" Parker asked. "Earth must accept Council oversight of your government, military, and population. The Council will assign advisors to help guide Earth's development along proper lines. Earth's population will be regulated to prevent resource depletion, and your military will be limited to system defense only." The bridge of the Defiance fell silent. Every human on board understood what they had just heard. The Council wasn't offering partnership. They were demanding complete surrender. Parker kept his voice steady. "Ambassador, could you clarify what you mean by population regulation?" "Certainly. Earth's current population of 8 billion is far too large for sustainable development. The Council recommends reducing this to approximately 500 million within the next century. This can be accomplished through relocation to designated colony worlds and voluntary reproductive limitation." Morrison felt his blood turn cold. The aliens were talking about killing or relocating 7.5 billion human beings as if it were a minor administrative detail. Dr. Kane was frantically working at his station, pulling up files from the alien databases they had hacked. His face went pale as he read. "Admiral," he whispered, "I'm finding records of other species that were regulated. The Helen civilization had 12 billion people before they joined the Council. Their current population is listed as 43 million. Lieutenant Commander Foster looked up from her sensors. "Sir, more ships are arriving. I count 15 vessels jumping into the system. They're taking positions around us." Morrison studied the tactical display. The Council ships were arranging themselves in a perfect sphere around the Defiance. It was a textbook encirclement, designed to prevent any chance of escape. "Commander Parker," Ambassador Veltar's voice had lost its musical quality and become harsh. "Earth has 3 choices. You can accept Council membership under the terms I have outlined. You can accept Protectorate status, which involves similar restrictions but with even less self-governance. Or you can refuse both options." "What happens if we refuse?" Parker asked. "Species that refuse Council membership are considered a threat to galactic stability. They are dealt with accordingly." The threat was clear now. The Council had surrounded the Defiance with enough firepower to destroy a small fleet. They expected humanity to surrender immediately rather than face annihilation. Morrison stepped forward and activated the communication system himself. "Ambassador Veltar, this is Admiral Jake Morrison, commanding officer of the USS Defiance." "Admiral Morrison, have you considered our generous offer?" "I have," Morrison said. "And I have Earth's response." The bridge crew held their breath. This was the moment that would define humanity's future in the galaxy. "Earth appreciates the Council's interest in our species," Morrison continued. "However, We must respectfully decline membership, protectorate status, and any other arrangement that involves surrendering our sovereignty. The silence from the alien ship was deafening. Admiral Morrison. Veltar's voice was ice-cold now. You do not seem to understand your situation. You are one ship surrounded by 21 vessels of the Council fleet. Your species is primitive and isolated. You have no allies, no advanced technology, and no hope of resistance. Morrison smiled grimly. Ambassador, you don't seem to understand our situation either. We are one ship crewed by 800 humans who have spent their entire lives preparing for this moment. We represent a species that has never accepted slavery, never surrendered its freedom, and never backed down from a fight. You would choose extinction over civilization? We would choose freedom over slavery. Every single time. Morrison cut the communication link and turned to his crew. All stations, battle alert. They're going to try to destroy us now. Captain Hart was already at her station. All hands, this is the captain. Battle stations, this is not a drill. The lights on the bridge dimmed to red as the Defiance prepared for combat. Morrison looked around at his crew. They were scared, but they were ready. 800 humans against the most powerful civilization in the galaxy. Sir, Collins reported. The Council ships are charging weapons. Energy signatures are off the charts. Morrison nodded. Let them fire first. I want the entire galaxy to know who started this war. The stars watched in silence as 21 alien warships prepared to destroy the single human vessel that had dared to defy the established order of the galaxy. The first shot came from the Council ship directly in front of the USS Defiance. A brilliant blue beam of energy struck the human vessel's forward shields, lighting up the darkness of space like a small sun. Shields holding at 90%, reported Lieutenant Commander Foster. Their energy weapons are powerful, but our magnetic deflectors are working. Admiral Morrison gripped the arm of his command chair as more beams struck the Defiance from all directions. The Council ships had opened fire simultaneously, trying to overwhelm the human defenses with pure firepower. Return fire, Morrison ordered. Target the ship that fired first. Chief Tactical Officer Collins pressed a series of buttons on his console. Railgun Battery 1, firing. The USS Defiance shuddered slightly as the magnetic coils activated. Deep in the ship's hull, a tungsten rod the size of a telephone pole accelerated down a 200-meter barrel. In less than a second, it reached 90% of light speed. The Council ship simply vanished. One moment it was there, firing its energy weapons at the human vessel. The next moment there was nothing but an expanding cloud of superheated gas and debris. The relativistic impact had converted both the tungsten rod and the alien ship into pure energy. The other Council ships stopped firing immediately. Admiral, Dr. Kane called out from his station. I'm picking up their communications. They're asking what just happened to their ship. Morrison allowed himself a small smile. I don't think they've ever seen kinetic weapons before. Captain Hart was studying the tactical display. Sir, they're regrouping, moving into a tighter formation. Let them, Morrison said. Collins, prepare the main battery full spread. The Defiance's primary weapon system came online. 6 massive railgun barrels extended from the ship's hull, each one capable of accelerating projectiles to near light speed. The aliens had never seen anything like it because their technology was based on energy manipulation, not throwing objects at incredible velocities. Sir, Commander Parker called out. Ambassador Veltar is trying to communicate. Put him through, Morrison ordered. The alien's voice was shaky now, filled with fear. Admiral Morrison, cease fire immediately. Your weapons are in violation of galactic warfare conventions. What conventions? Morrison replied calmly. We're not members of your council. We don't follow your rules. Your weapons are too destructive. They could damage entire star systems. Morrison looked around the bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for his response. These were the same aliens who had just threatened to kill 7 billion humans and had opened fire on a diplomatic vessel. Ambassador, Morrison said, you just tried to murder 800 humans for the crime of wanting to remain free. Don't lecture us about destructive weapons. The Council ships began moving again, but their formation was different now. Instead of surrounding the Defiance, they were spreading out. trying to avoid being grouped together where one weapon could destroy multiple targets. Smart, Collins observed. They learn fast. Chief Engineer Lopez's voice came through the communication system. Admiral, the fusion reactors are running hot. We can maintain this power level for another 6 hours before we need to cool down. Understood, Maria. How are the railgun systems? Working perfectly, sir. We have enough ammunition to destroy a small fleet. Morrison nodded. The Defiance had been built for exactly this scenario. Earth's military leaders had studied every alien encounter they could find, and they had designed their ship to fight against superior numbers with superior firepower. Sir, Foster reported, I'm detecting new energy signatures. More ships are jumping into the system. Morrison's heart sank. The tactical display showed 12 new contacts appearing at the edge of the system. The Council was calling in reinforcements. How many ships does that make total? He asked. 32, sir. 32 ships against 1. Morrison had faced bad odds before, but this was different. These weren't human opponents who might make mistakes or lose their nerve. These were alien, military vessels with unknown capabilities. Admiral, Dr. Kane said urgently. I'm intercepting their communications. They're coordinating a simultaneous attack from all directions. They plan to overwhelm our defenses with sheer volume of fire. Morrison stood up from his command chair. All hands, this is the Admiral. The Council is about to throw everything they have at us. We're going to show them why humans don't give up without a fight. The crew responded with determination. Every person on the ship knew they were probably going to die, but they also knew their deaths would mean something. Earth would learn what happened here, and Earth would be ready when the Council came for them. Collins, prepare the fusion torpedoes. I want a full spread ready to launch. Yes, sir. 48 torpedoes armed and ready. The fusion torpedoes were humanity's most destructive weapons. Each one contained a miniature star, compressed into a warhead the size of a barrel. When they detonated, they released the same energy as a nuclear bomb, but focused into a directed blast that could punch through any known armor. Navigator Clark, plot a course through their formation. We're going to punch a hole in their line and try to reach open space. Ben Clark's fingers flew over his console. Course plotted, sir. We'll pass within 5 kilometers of at least 6 enemy ships. Perfect. We'll give them something to remember us by. The Council ships began their attack run. Energy beams lanced through space from all directions, striking the Defiance's shields with tremendous force. The human ship's magnetic deflectors strained to redirect the incoming energy, but they held. Shields down to 60%, Foster reported. We can't take much more of this. Morrison gripped his chair as the ship shook under the bombardment. Collins, fire everything. Full spread, all targets. The USS Defiance unleashed hell. 6 railgun barrels fired simultaneously, sending tungsten rods screaming through space at near light speed. 48 fusion torpedoes launched from the ship's missile tubes, their drives accelerating them to incredible velocities. The point defense systems activated, filling space with a web of laser fire designed to intercept incoming projectiles. 3 more Council ships disappeared in flashes of light as the railgun rounds found their targets. The fusion torpedoes struck their own targets a moment later, and space filled with the light of miniature suns as the warheads detonated. Direct hits on 8 targets, Collins reported. 5 ships destroyed, 3 heavily damaged. But the Council ships kept coming. Their return fire was devastating, overwhelming the Defiance's defenses through sheer volume. Energy beams struck the human ship's hull directly, melting armor plating and causing explosions throughout the vessel. Hull breach on Deck 7, Foster called out. Emergency containment in progress. Morrison felt the ship lurching as Navigator Clark executed the escape maneuver. The Defiance accelerated toward the gap in the Council formation, its engines straining to reach maximum velocity. Sir, Parker shouted over the noise of alarms and explosions. We're not going to make it, too many ships in our path. Morrison looked at the tactical display. Parker was right. Even with the ships they had destroyed, there were still too many. Council vessels between them and open space. Collins, do we have any fusion torpedoes left? 12, sir. Morrison made a decision that would be remembered throughout the galaxy. Arm them all. Set them for proximity detonation. We're going to clear our own path. The last 12 fusion torpedoes launched from the Defiance, flying ahead of the ship toward the Council formation. They detonated simultaneously, creating a wall of nuclear fire that cleared a corridor through the enemy ships. The USS Defiance shot through the gap, leaving behind a battlefield littered with destroyed alien vessels and the knowledge that one human ship had just changed the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The news of the battle at Nexus Prime spread across the galaxy faster than anyone thought possible. Within hours, every species with faster-than-light communication had heard the impossible story. A single ship from an unknown world had destroyed 13 Council vessels and escaped. Ambassador Veltar stood before the full Council assembly on Nexus Prime, his hands shaking as he delivered his report. The 12 species that ruled the galaxy sat in stunned silence as he described weapons that violated every principle of civilized warfare. The humans use kinetic projectiles accelerated to near light speed, Veltar explained to the assembled representatives. Our shields cannot deflect solid matter moving at such velocities. The impact converts both the projectile and the target into pure energy. Counselor Thexmar of the Zenthari, masters of defensive technology, stood up from his seat. That is impossible. No civilization would develop such barbaric weapons. I saw it with my own eyes, Veltar replied. Entire ships simply ceased to exist. No explosion, no debris field. They were there one moment and gone the next. The Krillian representative, whose species had perfected energy weapons over thousands of years, spoke next. What about their defensive systems? How did they survive concentrated fire from 20 ships? They use magnetic fields to deflect our energy weapons, but that's not the worst part. Veltar's voice dropped to a whisper. They also possess fusion weapons. Nuclear, devices that can be delivered at faster than light speeds. The chamber erupted in shocked voices. Nuclear weapons had been banned from galactic warfare for over 2,000 years. Every civilized species considered them too dangerous and destructive for military use. How many ships did they destroy? Asked the Vexani counselor. 13. Confirmed destroyed. 8 more heavily damaged. All from a single vessel with 800 crew members. The silence that followed was deafening. The Council had lost more ships in one battle than they had in the previous century of peacekeeping operations. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Helen Davis sat in the Oval Office reading Admiral Morrison's report. The USS Defiance had reached Earth's solar system after a week-long journey, carrying news of humanity's first contact with galactic civilization. How many casualties? Davis asked. Secretary of Defense John Carter consulted his tablet. 43 dead, 112 wounded. The ship took heavy damage but remained operational. Davis nodded grimly. 43 human lives lost. But they had sent a message to the galaxy that Earth would not be conquered easily. What's the status of our other ships? She asked. The USS Vengeance and USS Retribution are nearly complete. The shipyards are working around the clock to finish them. We should have 3 operational battleships within 6 months. Davis stood up and walked to the window overlooking the White House lawn. That won't be enough. If the Council decides to invade Earth, they'll bring hundreds of ships. Ma'am, Carter said carefully, Admiral Morrison's report suggests they might not be willing to take such losses. They've never faced weapons like ours before. Davis turned back to face him. Or they might decide we're too dangerous to exist and throw everything they have at us. On the rim of Council space, word of the battle was spreading to smaller species that had lived under galactic rule for centuries. The Corvan species, whose homeworld had been conquered 300 years earlier, gathered in secret to discuss the news. Is it true? Asked Elder Vexti. Did someone actually defeat Council ships in battle? Captain Sevron, a former Corvan military officer, nodded. My contacts in the outer territories confirm it. The humans destroyed 13 Council vessels and escaped with minimal damage. The gathering buzzed with excitement. For the first time in 3 centuries, someone had successfully resisted the Council's might. What kind of weapons do they possess? Asked another Corvan. Kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds, fusion warheads, technology that the Council has no defense against. Elder Vexti leaned forward. Are they accepting allies? The question hung in the air. Every species in the room had lost their freedom to the Council. Many had seen their populations reduced, their cultures suppressed, their home world strip-mined for resources. Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. The Hellan survivors, whose civilization had been nearly destroyed by Council population controls, sent secret messages to their scattered colonies. The Turvan mining slaves on Council worlds whispered about a species that fought back and won. On Nexus Prime, the Council was struggling to maintain control of the narrative. Official reports claimed the battle had been a minor skirmish with pirates, but the truth was spreading faster than they could contain it. Councillor Thexamar called an emergency session. We cannot allow this rebellion to spread. If other species believe they can resist Council authority, our entire civilization will collapse. What do you propose? Asked the Krillian representative. We gather a fleet of 500 ships and destroy the human homeworld. We make an example that will prevent any other species from attempting resistance. The Vexani councillor objected. 500 ships? The logistics alone would take months to organize. Then we take months, Thexamar replied. This threat must be eliminated completely. But not everyone on the council agreed. The Zenthari had developed their defensive technology through centuries of careful research and testing. They understood better than most what human weapons could do to large formations of ships. We lost 13 ships to one human vessel, the Zenthari representative pointed out. A fleet of 500 ships would be an even more tempting target for their kinetic weapons. You're suggesting we do nothing? Thexamar demanded. I'm suggesting we reconsider our approach. Perhaps diplomacy would be more effective than warfare. Debate continued for hours, but no decision was reached. The Council, which had ruled the galaxy through unity and overwhelming force, was fracturing under the pressure of humanity's defiance. Meanwhile, Commander Sam Parker was leading secret missions to the Rim territories. The USS Defiance, despite its battle damage, was still operational and heavily armed. Parker's job was to make contact with oppressed species and offer them something the Council never had: a choice. The first species to respond was the Mordian Collective, a group of traders who had been forced to give the Council 70% of their profits for the past 2 centuries. Their leader, a being called Kextar, met with Parker on a neutral trading station. You're the humans who destroyed Council ships? Kextar asked through the universal translator. We defended ourselves when they attacked us, Parker replied carefully. We're not looking for war, but we won't accept slavery either. What do you offer? Fair trade agreements, mutual defense pacts, the right to govern yourselves without interference. Kextar was quiet for a long moment. And if the Council retaliates against us? Parker's expression was grim but determined. Then we fight together. Earth doesn't abandon its allies. Within a month, 17 species had signed preliminary agreements with Earth. They were mostly small civilizations from the Outer Rim, but they represented millions of beings who were tired of Council oppression. The balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Council faced organized resistance. Species that had been enemies were uniting under Earth's protection. Trade routes that had been monopolized by Council members suddenly had competition. Most importantly, hope was spreading. The galaxy was learning that the Council could be defeated, that freedom was possible, and that somewhere in the Outer Rim was a species willing to fight for the rights of others. The USS Defiance patrolled the contested zones, its weapon systems, repaired and upgraded with captured Council technology. Every species in the galaxy knew that the small, ugly human ship represented something that hadn't existed for millennia, an alternative to Council rule. The galaxy was no longer trembling, just in horror. It was trembling with the possibility of change. 2 years had passed since the USS Defiance first entered Council space. The galaxy looked very different now. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his new flagship, the USS Liberty, watching a fleet of 50 ships from 12 different species conduct training exercises. The Terran Federation had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as 17 small species seeking protection had become a powerful alliance that controlled nearly a quarter of known space. The Federation's core principle was simple: Every species had the right to govern itself without interference. Admiral. Captain Lisa Hart reported from her station, "The joint fleet exercises are proceeding smoothly. The Corvin ships are adapting well to our tactical doctrine." Morrison nodded with satisfaction. Human military tactics based on overwhelming firepower and decisive action had proven effective when combined with alien technology and crews. The Federation fleet was smaller than the Council's forces, but it was better trained and better equipped. "Any word from the diplomatic mission?" Morrison asked. Commander Sam Parker, now serving as the Federation's chief negotiator, appeared on the main screen via subspace communication. He was aboard a neutral station in the border region between Federation and Council space. "Admiral, the Council has finally agreed to formal negotiations," Parker reported. "They're sending a full diplomatic team including representatives from all 12 Council species." Morrison raised an eyebrow. "All 12? They must be taking this seriously." "Very seriously, sir. Our intelligence sources suggest the Council is facing internal pressure. Several member species are questioning whether the old system still works. The truth was that the Council was fracturing from within. The Zenthari had lost faith in their defensive technology after human weapons proved unstoppable. The Krillians were struggling to develop new energy weapons that could match human kinetic systems. Smaller Council species were beginning to wonder if they were on the right side of history. Chief Engineer Maria Lopez interrupted from the engine room. "Admiral, the new ships are ready for their first patrol. The USS Freedom and USS Independence are requesting permission to depart." "Granted," Morrison replied. The Federation now had 12 human battleships, each one incorporating lessons learned from the first battle at Nexus Prime. They were faster, more heavily armed, and equipped with the best alien technology that Federation allies could provide. Dr. Alex Kane approached Morrison with a tablet full of intelligence reports. "Admiral, we're receiving messages from Council member species. Some of them are expressing interest in joining the Federation." Morrison studied the reports. 3 Council species had sent secret diplomatic messages, suggesting they were unhappy with Council leadership and curious about Federation membership terms. "What are they offering?" Morrison asked. "The Vexani want to bring their communication networks. The Zephyrians are offering their agricultural technology. The Helios people control several important mining systems." Morrison considered this carefully. Accepting Council species into the Federation would be a major escalation of the conflict. It would essentially mean the end of the Council as a governing body. "Set up secure meetings," he decided, "but make sure they understand what they're asking for. If they join us, they'll be at war with their former allies." On Nexus Prime, the Council was holding its own emergency sessions. The once mighty alliance that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years was coming apart at the seams. Councillor Thexmar of the Zenthari stood before the assembly, his voice filled with desperation. "We cannot allow more species to defect to the humans. Each loss weakens our position further." "Then what do you suggest?" asked the Krillian representative. "Our military campaigns have failed. Our blockades have been broken. The humans and their allies grow stronger every day." The Vexani councillor, who had been secretly negotiating with the Federation, remained silent. He had already decided that the Council's days were numbered. "We could offer the humans co-leadership of the galaxy," suggested the Mordian representative. "Share power instead of fighting over it." Thexmar's response was immediate and angry. "Share power with primitives who use nuclear weapons? Never." But other voices in the chamber disagreed. The younger Council species, those who had joined more recently, were beginning to see the wisdom in compromise. The debate continued for days, but no consensus could be reached. The Council that had once spoken with one voice was now divided against itself. Meanwhile, Federation forces were expanding their territory every month. Commander Ryan Collins led a fleet of mixed-species ships in liberating former Council colonies. The pattern was always the same. Federation forces would arrive, defeat any Council resistance, and then hold a free election to determine the planet's future. Most chose to join the Federation. A few chose independence. None chose to remain under Council rule. The turning point came when the Vexani officially announced their withdrawal from the Council and their intention to join the Terran Federation. Their vast communication network instantly became available to Federation forces, giving them real-time intelligence across half the galaxy. Within weeks, 3 more Council species followed suit. The alliance that had ruled the galaxy was collapsing. President Helen Davis, now in her second term, addressed the Federation Assembly from Earth. Representatives from 43 different species listened as she outlined humanity's vision for the galaxy's future. "We never wanted to rule the galaxy," Davis said. "We only wanted the right to exist as free beings. But we've learned that freedom is not something you can enjoy alone. It must be shared, defended, and protected for everyone." The assembly erupted in applause. Species that had been enemies for centuries were now working together under the Federation's banner of self-determination. Admiral Morrison received the final surrender of Council forces at the Battle of Kepler Station. The remaining 8 Council species, led by a humbled Councillor Thexmar, formally requested a ceasefire and negotiations. The peace talks were held on the neutral world of Haven, a planet that had declared independence from both the Council and the Federation. Ambassador Veltar, the same alien who had first threatened Earth years earlier, sat across from Commander Parker at the negotiating table. "The Council accepts the dissolution of the old Galactic Order," Veltar said quietly. "We request permission to establish independent governments on our remaining worlds." Parker nodded. "The Federation has no interest in conquering anyone. All species have the right to self-determination, including former Council members." The final treaty was signed on a warm spring day on Haven. The document established the new Galactic Order. The Terran Federation would govern its member worlds through voluntary association, while former Council species would be free to establish their own governments or join the Federation if they chose. 5 years after the USS Defiance first appeared at Nexus Prime, Admiral Morrison stood on the observation deck of Federation headquarters, watching ships from dozens of species docking. At the massive space station, human vessels worked alongside Corvan traders, Zenthari defense ships, and former Council military units that had joined the Federation. Captain Hart joined him at the window. "Did you ever imagine it would turn out like this?" she asked. Morrison smiled. "When we left Earth, I thought we were probably going to die fighting for the right to exist. I never imagined we'd end up changing the entire galaxy." "The Council ruled for 3,000 years, Hart observed. "Think the Federation will last as long?" Morrison considered the question. The Federation was built on different principles than the Council. Instead of ruling through fear and overwhelming force, it governed through consent and mutual benefit. Instead of demanding submission, it offered partnership. "Maybe," he said finally, "as long as we remember that freedom isn't something you win once and keep forever. It's something you have to defend every single day." The galaxy had trembled when Earth's battleship arrived, but not just in horror. It had trembled with the possibility of change, with the hope of freedom, and with the promise that no species would have to face tyranny alone ever again. The stars watched as a new chapter in galactic history began, written by beings who believed that all life deserved liberty.